And welcome back, everybody, to the Law News Network. It's been a busy day here at Law News. We are covering several different cases going on throughout the country. You're just listening to the closing arguments in the Curtis Reeves Stand Your Ground hearing that's been underway for the last 2 weeks out of Florida. And boy, did we hear a long closing argument from defense attorney Escobar, who represents Curtis Reeves in this case. In my experience, and I've covered a lot of trials, this is probably one of the longer closing arguments I've ever seen. It started this morning and went, I would say, more than 3 hours, possibly even 4 hours. I have to calculate with all the breaks and the lunch break how long it took, but certainly he was a very passionate advocate for his client, and he was really hammering home some of those points. But what's interesting particularly about this case is that, again, this is just a preliminary hearing, and what we heard today really sounded like a closing argument that you might give before a jury, just because he was so dramatic. Escobar was so dramatic, really playing to his audience, but his audience is a judge, and in my experience, the judge is more concerned about the law in the case, not kind of the facts and going through some of the dramatization of the case. So it will be interesting to see how this plays for the judge. She told us yesterday that she's expected to make a decision in this case no later than March 10th, which is next week. So she's obviously has a lot to consider, because we've had about 10 days of testimony. First, the defense giving their case, and then of course we had the prosecution, who presented several witnesses yesterday and the day before, and I thought those witnesses were really strong because they did paint a different picture of who Curtis Reeves was that day in the movie theater, and how agitated he was, and how he really was the aggressor. I am going to be joined now by Cathy from Court Chatter. She's one of our regular guests here on Law News Network, and we're so glad to have you, Cathy. And I know, like us and many of our viewers, you've been watching the closing arguments from defense attorney Escobar as well. If you could get through all of them. He was quite animated, and it lasted for a while. What did you make of it?
Well, first of all, he told the judge yesterday 2 hours, maybe 3, about 3 hours, and then he went over 3 hours. So, okay, he's very passionate. We know that about him. He's very loud. We know that about him, and that didn't change today.
And it's weird too. Oh, sorry. Keep going, Cathy.
Oh, his defense is what his defense is. One is the whole first part of his closing today was all about Curtis Reeves' age and limited ability because of his age,
right,
and his frailty, and he harped on that for a long period of time.
Yes. And how they were just retired folks going to see a movie, and this, he was just in the end kind of retirement age, and he didn't go there to pick a fight.
Right, and it's all about, he went about how he was this police officer and this great career, and healthy and all that, and then everything had started to just deteriorate for him, and he became this old feeble man basically, and his hands didn't work so well, and his legs don't work so well, and getting up and down, and he's really going on that kind of defense for why this former police officer would feel his life was in danger when the other person didn't have a weapon. And that's what this whole defense really has been about.
What do you think he went on too long? And we were just talking before you got on, Cathy, that, again, this is not a trial before a jury. This is a preliminary hearing, and it's before a judge. And this judge, I have to say, has been pretty patient. But you could see this case has tested her patience just a bit. And I felt like she might have gotten a little frustrated by the length of Escobar's closings. I mean, do you think it's really a smart move on his part to make this judge listen to this?
She has had the patience of a saint.
Yes.
So we have seen, lots of different judges around the country. all kinds of different personalities and what they're willing to put up with in a courtroom and what they're not. And I can tell you, she is just really been biting her tongue, letting them go for it. The defense attorney, absolutely for sure, but even the prosecutor will start yelling in the courtroom. All the yelling that goes on is what I can't believe she keeps putting up with. But yes, now she's done, right? She's at the end of her 2 weeks, the end of her very long, long day. She's tired of it. I said this early on, that maybe 3, 4, 5 days into this, she's made up her mind. I believe that. And she's ready to be done with this. And yesterday, at the end of the day, she said, I don't need a full day of closings. She said it like that.
Right.
So, and now it's going to be a full day of closings. And so it's too much. And for him to be yelling like that, there's no jury to play to.
Right, and here's what I don't understand. So, like, let's just say you're in college, right, and your professor says, I don't want your term paper to be more than 10 pages, and then you turn in a 50-page term paper. I mean, come on. It's like...
That's a great example.
Right.
Or you're applying for a job, and your resume is, 10 pages. There's
no one
wants
to the side. That, right. Oh, I just lost you. Oh.
Is it freezing?
Sorry. Sorry.
I don't know. My end or your end? I can't tell.
Okay, we're good now. Sorry about that. I thought I lost you
okay.
for a moment there.
Anyway, definitely I believe he went too long. The judge knows this case inside and out. She knows every single piece of evidence. She's heard it all. She didn't even need a closing argument. So to have it be 3.5 hours is ridiculous.
And just moving on from the closings, and we're standing by right now. We're told there's a 15-minute break, and then the prosecutor is going to present their side. What did you make of the last couple of days of testimony from the witnesses inside the movie theater? Because in my mind, that really kind of shaped how I perceived this case, and I think it really did not bode well for Curtis Reeves at all.
Look, the people from that follow me and in our chat will tell you that I started out the case arguing this defense case hard.
Right.
I like to do that anyway because I like to open their mind when you get into a beginning of a case. So I really like to argue a defense side because I want the prosecution to prove their case. And I felt good about arguing my case, but man, as this has been going on, it's getting worse and worse for him.
Right.
I definitely, look, I think everyone has agreed. Everyone you've had on and your host there and everyone in every chat room and everyone on Twitter, everyone watching this believes it's going to trial. That's why I said she's had her mind made up. There's no way she's going to rule for the defense.
Well, Cathy, I was kind of like you. I really carefully and anxiously watched Curtis Reeves when he took the stand earlier this week. And I got to say, you know what? I said, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on what he said. I didn't think his story completely lined up. It seemed kind of sudden that all of a sudden he said he feared for his life. There was like a little bit of a disconnect in his story, but I was kind of buying. He was 71 years old at the time. I'm a feeble old man. But then I heard the testimony from the witnesses, including the older lady who testified yesterday, who said that she was scared that Reeves was going to hit somebody. And she said that she was scared even before anything went down. And she didn't pinpoint Chad as the aggressor. She pinpointed Curtis Reeves as the aggressor. When I heard that, and this, you have to understand, this woman has no reason to point the finger at Curtis Reeves. She's not related to him. She's not his wife. You know, why would she make this up?
I shouldn't say the only, but a good point the defense has been harping on is that everyone from the theater was shoved into a room together right after, and they were all allowed to talk.
Right.
And nobody was separated. So everyone was talking about what just happened and what they just saw, and that could shape, because we all know about eyewitness testimony, and that could shape how people are remembering things. So, I don't know. And the theater's dark, and for the most part, you don't pay attention to other people around you when you're in a theater. getting ready to watch a movie. So I'm sure things escalated quickly, went down fast, and then all of a sudden there's a gunshot. And then as a witness, you have to recall everything. I do think Chad Olson was aggressive. I do. I think Curtis Reeves started it. And then I think Chad Olson is also a hothead. He didn't deserve to die for that.
Right,
but
one thing that I
believe that this whole thing was escalated by these two men for no reason at all, and there was no reason for a gunshot to end it. I guess. Look, I still believe Curtis Reeves. There's nothing in his past, really, in his history, to show that he's just going to pull out a gun willy-nilly and shoot people.
Right.
So that's why I've had a hard time with this case. That there wasn't anything in his career that showed that he was trigger happy. There hasn't been anything even in his retirement that shows he's trigger happy. He has been, apparently there was an incident a week before in the theater where he also got into it with someone in the theater about the cell phone. So it looks like he's one of those kind of people, which we all know those kind of people.
Yes.
But it's to pulling out of a gun and killing someone when someone who's very well trained in handling a gun and has seen damage from guns, that I keep thinking he had to have had some fear. That's why I could argue his side of it. It was just him and his wife. His son wasn't there yet. Protection. He felt vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
But does it rise for the law, the level that he needs for the law to protect himself? It's going to trial.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And right now we are monitoring what's going on in the Curtis Reeves hearing. Court has not started back up. It looks like the prosecution is setting up some posters or some kind of displays that I'm sure they're going to show the judge. I wanted to play, because we were just talking earlier about that one witness from yesterday. Her name was Jane Roy, and she had some really compelling testimony. Oh, I don't think we don't have that pulled just yet, but as soon as we get it up, we'll play it for you. But that's when she described Curtis Reeves walking into the movie theater being very agitated, and she was asked specifically, who do you think was going to kind of start the fight? And she answered that it was Curtis Reeves. But like you were saying, you're right. This guy is obviously very well trained, Curtis Reeves. He's a former law enforcement officer. We went through hours and hours, exhaustingly, of all his credentials. He has ad nauseum. He has many certificates, and it just doesn't seem to make sense that he would just pull this out.
I'll tell you that I really can't find a person watching this in Reeves' corner. So I was just alone. I was all alone in my chat room trying to argue his case, because they honestly, the trial he's not going to do this to me, but pull out a gun and shoot him. That's why I think that Curtis Reeves did think Chad Olson was coming over that seat at him.
I can see both sides. I can see both sides. I want to see if we can just, I don't think actual closings have started in Curtis Reeves, but I do see that they're playing some video of some of the evidence from from the case, from the incident. So if we could go live to the courtroom in Florida right now, just to take a look at what's going on, that would be terrific. It looks like they have the popcorn bag that Curtis Reeves and Chad Olson, you'll remember there was an incident, this incident all involved popcorn flying about, and they also showed the gun just a few minutes earlier. The big question I still had, Cathy, if you're still there with me, is what do you believe he was hit in the face with that cell phone? That's the big question, because both in the police interview tape and during the when Curtis Reeves was on the stand, he describes, being hit with a cell phone or something that caused his glasses to get discombobulated. But we heard from witnesses that say they never saw that happen. One witness said they saw a cell phone on the ground. But I think that actually could go into whether or not this was a self-defense case, because when you're hit with an object, a hard object like that, I could see why he might be fearful of something else happening. But I don't know if I believe that story of his. I just don't know. What do you think?
I'm also almost alone in this. I believe he at least felt like he was hit with something. I think that was the trigger that happened. And we have a crime scene photo of Chad Olson's phone laying down at the feet of where Curtis Reeves was sitting. Now, that could have fallen from when he got shot, but it is down there. Most of the people watching this do not believe he was ever hit in the face with anything, but he says it right afterwards. He says something about that that guy just hit me, and one witness testified that he heard Curtis Reeves say that right after. So there was one witness that heard him at least say that. And why say that directly right after? About something hitting him. I think that something hit him. Now, most of the people watching think that a kernel of popcorn hit him. So yeah. I don't know.
But come on, this guy knows the difference between a kernel of popcorn and a hard cell phone being thrown at his face. So,
what if it's just tossed and it's not like, chucked enough to break glasses and stuff? What if it's just something just enough, or it slips out of Chad's hand because he's angry and he's going and wife's holding him back, and it just comes out enough that Reeves feels like it's coming out his face?